We started with cornerback and defensive tackle, and now we continue our position 360 series with Clemson's defensive ends. And in the first two, it was a story of, maybe a little regression or maybe a lot of regression. But here at defensive end, there's a lot of positive things to talk about and potential for big growth and a big step forward. So, as we always do, let's start with last season. A year ago, coming into the season, I was pretty skeptical of the coaching staff's decision to start with Justin Maskell and Xavier Thomas penciled in as the starters. Maskell had struggled for 5 seasons, and Xavier Thomas has struggled to stay healthy for most of that time. Fortunately, Maskell was passable as a starter. He had a 65.4 PFF grade, which isn't great, probably not starter level for a team that aspires to win a national championship, but it was passable. And then Xavier Thomas stayed healthy, and when he's healthy, he's good. He only had 3 sacks, but he did a great job harassing quarterbacks, and he earned almost an 80 PFF grade for pass rush. He was a good pass rusher, not as good against the run, but a really good pass rusher. And you got to say a successful season for Xavier Thomas. Really happy to see him go out that way. But really the biggest revelation and what made sort of that room okay or even good was TJ Parker, true freshman, forced his way onto the field. Good against the run, good against the pass. He led all Clemson defensive ends and PFF grade for both run defense and pass rush. He had 5.5 sacks, was Clemson's best defensive end, and that made all the difference. TJ Parker was awesome. Beyond those three, Cade Denhoff saw 174 snaps, and then the remaining were sort of divided up between AJ Hoffler, Jaheim Lawson, and then Zaire Patterson and David Ojigbe only got 25 between them. So overall, a group that I had a lot of concerns coming in, and while they weren't, national championship caliber per se, they were much better than expected because Maskell was a little bit better than expected. Xavier was a lot healthier than expected, and TJ Parker really popped. So what changes now? Well, Xavier Thomas was a 5th-round pick of the Arizona Cardinals. Maskell has exhausted his eligibility, and David Ojigbe has transferred to Pittsburgh. So those are 3 losses there. They only bring in one Darian Mayo, 6'7" prospect out of Olney, Maryland. I don't know if he'll contribute a ton immediately, although he was a good prospect. And this was a spot where I really wanted to see Clemson go get a transfer because they had those losses and only add one freshman. There's obviously room. There's only 81 players in scholarship as of this recording. So I felt like that would make sense. Instead, they gave a scholarship to a developmental prospect, Adam Kisai, who after spring immediately transferred to Minnesota, where he had originally committed anyway. That was not a take that I was happy to see at the time. It feels like obviously Clemson considers themselves a developmental program, but at this kind of juncture of college football, I don't think you get a guy with a plan of he's got almost no shot to contribute for 2-3 years. That sort of super long-term 5-year plan where they're going to contribute as a redshirt junior and redshirt senior really isn't ideal in most cases anymore. So they brought him in. Obviously, he left, so they're a little thin there. So what they've done instead is move Peter Woods to defensive end. Caden Story, who's depth at defensive tackle, also moves to defensive end. Well, that changes a lot. And the other thing that changes a lot is new position coach. Lemansky Hall, who they brought in 2018, when they could bring someone in without replacing anyone because they increased the number of position coaches that year. They brought Lemansky Hall in. He had a personal relationship with Coach Sweeney going back to their Alabama days. He was a position coach at a high school in Nashville. They brought him in. Obviously, his first year, they won the national championship with Cleveland Furl, Austin Bryant. They were awesome. But really, even starting that year, I mean, the decline of Clemson's defensive end play was pretty steady. Even when they brought in elite prospects like KJ Henry, Miles Murphy, they didn't produce for Clemson at the level you might have expected. So they move on and they bring back Chris Rumpf, who was at Clemson back in 2010 and was successful in the NFL. He was with the Vikings most recently. And his intensity and his experience could really revitalize the depth. Obviously, not going to make the immediate impact that moving Peter Woods there will make, but that's a couple things in their favor. So we look at 2024. What are my expectations for the position group? I was pretty negative towards them last year, and while they exceeded my low expectations, they weren't great. But this year, I am extremely positive. Peter Woods and TJ Parker were Clemson's two highest graded defensive players at their position. Excuse me. Woods was the highest graded defensive tackle specifically. TJ Parker was the highest graded defensive end, and now they're both starters at defensive end. So that's an elite starting duo. You have one guy who's a great pass rusher, another guy who's really great at everything, but you'd think at defensive end with his size is going to be a big problem for opposing run offenses. And then you bring in Chris Rumpf, but now you've got an NFL caliber position coach in addition, right? So you've upgraded your starters, you've upgraded your coaching. And I still believe in Cade Denhoff. He was a high 4-star. He looked good in the spring game, and now he's got some great coaching. I really believe that bringing in a great coach, and we'll talk on this again when we get to the offense with Matt Luke. I think there is talent hasn't been developed, and I think we're going to see some of these talented players take a step. Cade Denhoff being one of them. So I like that. I like that trio there. Jaheim Lawson. There's a lot of guys who I'm wrong about when we take them. I didn't think Tyler Brown, the wide receiver, was a great take, and obviously he's excellent. Sometimes I'm right, like Adam Kasai, but oftentimes I'm wrong, and I feel like Jaheim Lawson, a guy I wasn't really high on at the time, I have a feeling he's going to prove me wrong. Lawson looked awesome in the spring game, especially on that the interception where he turned his hips and picked off the wheel route. So actually kind of high on him now and think he can contribute at least as a situational pass rusher. And then beyond him, Caden Story moves over from defensive tackle, adds depth. AJ Hoffler is a guy a lot of people are excited about. And then Zaire Patterson, someone who, people might have thought would have transferred, but with a new position coach, seems like perhaps maybe he'll rededicate himself. He was a big prospect, so certainly not going to give up on him. And then you have Darian Mayo, who's a big prospect in his own right, and only true freshman. But nonetheless, it's actually a room that, with Story and Woods moving over, and now an elite NFL position coach, I actually feel really good about. Could be Clemson's perhaps best position room, which would be a big upgrade from last year. So I think this is a group that fans should be excited about, and I think a group that will make a big difference for Clemson and keeping that defense elite. As always, thanks for watching, and go Tigers. If you enjoyed this video, you can help the channel grow in a couple ways. Like the video and leave a comment. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you're a pet owner and you live in the upstate, I want to tell you about Ready Vets. Ready Vets offers immediate walk-in care when your pet can't wait. Owned by 2 Clemson alumni, they're open 7 days per week until 10 p.m. They're located in Taylor's, just over 10 miles from downtown Greenville and the Woodruff Road shopping district. Save them in your phone in case you ever need them.